I want to make sure that my audio is working. Sweet. Awesome. How's everyone doing? Hope you guys are doing well. Ooh, a typhoon. Sounds dangerous. Hope everything's all right. Good, good, good. Cool. Awesome. Well, um, thank you guys for coming, taking the time to come here and meet with me for a few minutes. Hoping that we can all get something out of it. This will be sort of like a short one, hopefully. Uh, Probably talk for like 20 minutes or something, and then I'll put it up for a Q&A if there's any questions afterwards. But before we start, quick reminder, July, it's actually July 31st. I thought July 30th was the last day of July, but it's going to be the last day of July, which is the 31st for the deadline of our little challenge. If you guys want to participate in, just download the free sample kit that we got going. Um, and I did it for those of you that don't know. I did a little YouTube video on how to do this if you need some guidance. But um, this will be a cool thing to see what you guys create. And um, looking forward to that. So let's get. Oh, thank you, appreciate it. Um, let's start with the topic here at hand. I wanna dive right into it. What is networking? I've got a sort of like a textbook sort of definition here, but networking involves building relationships with people who can mutually benefit from each other professionally. For concept artists, networking is essential in staying connected with industry peers, nurture bonds with other creators, learning about new job opportunities, and keeping up with industry trends. And I want to emphasize the word relationship because I think it's the most important part here. This, of course, does not mean that you have to be best friends or know everything about everybody or every person that you meet in order to successfully network, right? But we have to understand that there is a relationship dynamic that happens when we go out and network. Also, there's different levels to this. Network is not about just connecting people. It's about connecting people, people with ideas, and people with opportunities. Now, before we talk about networking, I really want to really emphasize that networking is just another piece of the puzzle, right? It's an effort that we do as artists to be part of a community, to increase our chances to, be exposed to opportunities like jobs and opportunities in that sense. But this isn't really the sole solution to find a job, um, but it is essential to your brand as an artist. And so the reason I said this at first is because I've met many people in my life that they discard the other pieces of the puzzle, like having a good quality portfolio or anything like that, and they solely or mostly concentrated on meeting, quote unquote, meeting the right people. And you could know the right people, but if you don't have the skill for that particular opportunity, um, it's not really gonna happen, right? Nobody's gonna hire you just because of the sole reason that you're a good guy, or you're a good person to be around. Even if you don't have the skill, you need to have that skill first and foremost, and then all these other things will fall into place. So um, we need to really understand that this is just a piece of the puzzle, and so we want to make sure that we understand no matter who you know, the quality of the work you're doing is not enough. It will matter. And but if all our other ingredients are good and where they need to be, then when opportunity arrives, then we can really take advantage of it. But I want to concentrate mostly in three main practices that I have learned throughout my years and also still do to this day, that I think are probably most important ones. And the first one is going to be genuine. Authenticity helps in forming lasting connections. Show genuine interest in others' work and stories. Be you, be kind, and be humble. Uh, being genuine means that yes, of course, there's an interest in everybody, uh, that you're trying to get an opportunity or land that job or meet that one person in the future. But I think it's super important to take a really honest interest in the people that we are interacting with, whether that means congratulating them in their latest received release project that they worked on, or complimenting them on their latest piece of artwork, or sharing it around in your social media, or being interested in how they work or their interest in their hobbies, etc. And so this is really important, where the goal is not to get the job or the opportunity. The opportunity or the job is just a byproduct of your relationship and your quality of work, right? So we're not really doing this just to get the job, or this is the mindset that I want to bring today. It's not that we're networking to find the job. Yes, we do have interest in that, but the job or getting that opportunity is just really the byproduct of those relationships and the results of our high quality artwork that we're creating. So you might connect with somebody that you know they like the same hobbies or study in the same university or town. So we have to really be genuine and humble and attentive, because you really don't know how an opportunity might present itself. We're gonna talk a little bit about this later, uh, but there isn't really a secret ingredient or secret recipe to do this the right way or the one way, because you truly don't know how opportunities might present themselves in the future. Alex told me the advice that I always give when networking is to be normal, right? Don't start out and immediately show your work or your portfolio, network and people, unless you're actually in a portfolio review, of course. Be their friend, be calm, be regular. This builds trust and helps establish communication, eases people into friendly relationships. Then, when the work lines up, people remember the friendship and not being network at, and people reach out about work. So Alex is if you guys don't know him, sound director, great, 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 great artist. Um, that's what he thinks about networking. Second practice is plan ahead. A goal without a plan is just a wish. Now, proper planning prevents poor performance. Let me say that again for the people in the back. Proper planning prevents poor performance. Now, you guys, if you know me for a little while, you guys know that I'm huge on time management and planning and proper planning and all that. And this also relates to networking. And this is probably the most overlooked practice when networking, right? I often see like students or people who are trying to get into the industry or find a job, and they sort of like wing it. And so, they don't know when conventions are happening. They don't know who is going to conventions. They sort of living it, everything or all applying to the last minute. They don't know what projects they worked on, or who's the person doing their portfolio review. And so when you decide that you're going to a convention, for example, you should take it very seriously as part, and you should see as part of your actual job to find out who is going to the convention, the times of the events, who are you planning to meet on what day at what time, the companies that will be present during the event, all of it, right? And so you should really have a really general idea, and really have that nailed out before you even get there. I would even say that you should even practice a pitch on how you're going to introduce yourself to art directors or producers, or whoever you're going to meet, and if you're going to get a portfolio review, and have things that you're actually going to ask before trying to figure it out when you're there. And so I think you should better plan ahead, right? Especially with finances and your time, because that's some of the or most of the resources that you're gonna use anyways when you're going to conventions. And so you have to really make sure that you plan ahead. I want to give you a quick personal example. In my case, when I first started, probably within the first year of starting to freelance, I was living in Puerto Rico, and I didn't have a great income. I was when I first started, I was working on a restaurant as a food prepper. I was also working in a gym part time, and I was doing my freelance when I got it. During nighttime or whenever I was free. But my goal back then was to go to one convention every year. Now, why just one? Because that's all I could afford back then. But I needed to do just at least one a year. And one year I went to Gen Con. And for those of you that don't know, Gen Con is a huge tabletop gaming convention, mostly for players. There's a lot of gaming happening. It's a very big convention, very small for artists, but huge for players on tabletop. But all these companies that do tabletop games, they always go there for the new products and all that. And when I went there, I knew I could just be there for, I think it was probably 1 or 2 days at most, because one, I had to come back to work, and two, I didn't have a lot of money to spend on hotels to stay. So I wanted to make sure that I did everything that I could or that I wanted to do in a day or two. And so I really, really prepared for that. And one of the things that I did, they were offering portfolio reviews. Wizards of the Coast was doing portfolio reviews there, which was the first portfolio review that I ever got, live like that, especially from Wizards. And my goal was to go to every single vendor that I wanted to work with or company that was there. Then can you guys see the broadcast? I want to make sure. Hello, hello. Somebody confirm that you guys can see this. Yeah, it's just the logo right now. Yeah. It's just the logo right now, but you should be able. Yeah, I see Gen Con. Yeah, that's all there is right now. It's just a Gen Con logo right now. Um, yeah. That's exactly it. Okay, great. Yeah. So, okay, great. Sorry. Um, cool. Yes, there is a chat. Feel free to use it. So I went to every vendor, right, and I asked for ADs, art directors, asked them to check my portfolio if there wasn't any idea, like any producer or any lead artist that maybe I was working there. And every major company was there, and a lot of smaller companies like AEG, Paizo, Wizards of the Coast, Fantasy Flight Games, etc. And I literally spent all day. I didn't play one game during those days, and I spent all day going to their booth, taking a look at the product, uh, and uh, asking them to review my portfolio if they had time, right? And a lot of them say no, right? Because that wasn't the purpose of the convention. Some said, come later. Some of them took the time right there to check it out. But one of them from Paizo, one art director from Paizo told me, come back after the convention is over, after that day is over, and I'll see if I have time to take a look at it. So I did all my runs. I did all, I spent all the day there, and I waited till the last minute when they were closing. I sort of waited for her by the booth there, and we probably talked for like, I think it was like a minute or two. It was very quick. She looked at my stuff for like a couple seconds, and she told me, "Yeah, we can use you. Just email me when you go back home, and we'll go from there." And so I went back home. I had a bunch of business cards. This was probably, I don't know, like 11, 12 years ago. So business cards was the way to sort of share your contact information back then. And a couple days later, I started sending a lot of thank you emails and reconnecting with people that saw me or that I talked to, and sort of letting them know, thanking them for the time, and reminding them who I was. And I sent this email to this lady, telling them, oh, I was to say, the person I waited and all this, but I never heard back from probably, I would say like 98% of them. But I just continued doing my thing, right? A year later, before the next Gen Con was happening, I got a reply from that email from that AD from Paizo, replying to that email that I sent a year before. And she was like, "Oh, I'm sorry for the late response. I got this project that I think you could work on." And so, even a year later, I was able to land that. From that, I worked with them for a couple of years. But the main thing that I wanted to mention with this story is that you have to do your part. You always have to do your part and just continue moving forward no matter what happens or the goal, right? You always have to do your yeah, the things that you can control and contact people and just connecting with them. And if something happens, great. If something doesn't happen, great as well. You just continue doing the things that you need to do. Now, conventions, you should know when all these conventions are happening so you can plan ahead, right? This is a list of some of the major conventions that I know about. I've participated in most of these, but there are always smaller conventions that happen also locally or closer to where you are that might be easier for you to get them. But if I was starting out, I would at least, similar to what I did 10 years ago, 12 years ago, is I need to go to these at least once a year, to one of these once a year, and really take the most out of it when I go there, with planning ahead and meeting the right people, and almost having a work like mindset when I'm there, because it is important, especially if you're trying to you know uh, land that job or meet that person, etc. Daner said, networking is putting the face of the artist to the expression that you made, which is your art. The worth of the work you make is the one you put on when you're networking to get a future job. Now, last practice is be proactive. An inch of movement will bring you closer to your goals than a mile of intention. This simply means to keep doing it. This should be part of your routine, part of your development as an artist. And a personal example is that, uh, again, this happened when I first started, probably 11, 12 years ago. I was fortunate enough to be selected to go to the Imagination Studios in-house workshop, which they don't do it anymore. But back then it was in Toronto when it first started, and pretty much it was like 30 days. You go there, live with them in this house with three other artists, and you literally spend all day, every day for the whole month with the Imagination Studios crew. And you take classes, you do work, and uh, you know live with them, you eat with them, all that stuff. So I remember saving like a whole year to be able to do this, because it was very expensive for me back then. And so here's some pictures of it. But it was a great time. It was probably one of the best, or at least top three experiences as an artist that I've had. I learned a lot with from Bobby and Thierry and Kay during that time. Um, but the story that I want to tell you with this is that because of this workshop, I was able to work for a big company, and it was because I was being proactive after the fact. And so the project was the Curse of the Sad Mummy for Riot Games. Everybody that went to this workshop, we had like a little Facebook private group, and it wasn't like a big group because there's only four of us every time, so the group wasn't humongous or a big group. But everybody that was a past student or a future student for this will get added to this group, and we share work and share our progress and share artwork and stuff like that. But every time I did something, I'll always post it there, and always comment it, and stay in touch with the people that was going to this workshop, or from past students and future students. And I think it was about a year later that I was there. Um, this lady that went to the workshop got added to the Facebook group, and she was I don't know if she still lived there, but she was from South Africa, and she got hired by this company that got hired by Riot to create this animation for this one of their champions, and they needed a background sort of environment artist. And she told me this later, that because she has seen my work on this Facebook group, she recommended me to the art director, to her art director. And so the art director took a look at my work. She thought it was a good fit, and so I got the opportunity to work on it, and I did a bunch of work for this particular animation. So I learned that very early that there isn't really one way of doing this, right? You simply don't know how you will be exposed to opportunities. And so the best thing the best thing that you can do is just to be proactive and keep doing it. Um, and so here's some ways that I used to do, and that I still do from time to time, that you can continuously expose yourself and network. Contests, I did a lot of contests back then. I don't do them anymore, but it was a great way to test your skill, develop your portfolio, get exposure, even more exposure if you win. Reach outs, right? You got emails, Twitters, our station, LinkedIn. I know some people ask about that, but when I reach out, unless there's like an actual job posting, I don't reach out asking for a job. Reach out so they know that you exist, just to connect. Here's some examples that I use. I always try to be familiar with what they do. I did this a couple years ago for the art director of the Ori games a couple years ago, and so this is something that I would normally do if I were to do it. You can join Discord channels, Facebook pages or groups, or LinkedIn groups. But all this stuff is most of this stuff is just stuff that you do anyways every day, right? So it's just a matter of keep doing it and gear it towards your network. And so, lastly, this is the last thing that I will say, and this is going to be a bit more personal, sort of to get it out of my chest type of thing. And these are things that I will say to you, like if you were really if you're a friend that was asking me about all these things, this is what I would say to you. This come very personal to me, because I constantly continue to work on these things that you see here, to this day, and that I know looking back that have made me better, not only as an artist but also as a person as well. And so all these things that you see here are the things that I personally had to go through to improve, to be a better artist and a person. And I'm a huge believer that if I meet someone for the first time, or second time or whatever, who could be either a potential client or a future close friend, or even just an industry connection or an artist peer, right? And within the first minute or during the time of our interaction, I can show that I can take care of myself as a person, right? That I can carry myself in a positive manner, that I'm kind, that I'm humble, that I got your back, no matter what. It will mean that I can also do that to them in a business setting relationship. And so I saw an interview a little while back. It wasn't too long ago, but it was pretty recent, and from a very, very successful business owner. And he was saying the story that he declined a multi-million-dollar deal to his business because he found out that his soon-to-be partner on this deal was cheating on his wife, or has cheated on his wife. And they asked him why, why he declined the deal when he had nothing to do with the business, and that's his personal life. Who cares, right? Well, he said that if he has no respect and did this to the person closest to him, I cannot imagine what he would do to me. And so I know this is like a super extreme example, right? But the main point that I want to bring with this is standards, right? You have to have a high standard to yourself. And if I meet an artist, right, that is always lost, unsure about what they're doing, always in a down mood all the time, every time I hear them, it's like mostly complaining about stuff. Like, do you really think that you would get connected to an art director, or like you will get recommended? And probably the answer is no, right? Because I'll be thinking that even though it may not be true, but people will be thinking that that reflection is going to get reflected in their work, in their behavior in the workplace, etc. So you have to have those high standards and carry yourself in a good manner. Um, and you have to remember that how you present yourself can be the defining opportunity, or the defining factor in every opportunity you encounter. So you have to embrace that possibility, be confident about it, and always carry yourself like you're winning all the time. So I got some direct questions that I got through the form, and I want to go through this, only I think 5 of them. So whoever put these up, thank you for putting them in. It really helps a lot. And then the first one is, how do I create meaningful, genuine connections through an online presence when everybody can be so fake without even trying? So it's really hard to do it just online, right? It takes time. Relationships take time to develop and be nurtured, right? But I may know where you're coming from with this, right? You might meet this, I always see this as a numbers game, right? If you're only meeting, let's just put a number, 5 person a year or 5 people a year that you're meeting, there's a high chance that at least one of them is gonna be uh somebody not so great to be around, and that leaves you with 4 people or 3 people that you just met that year that maybe could turn into something. But if you're meeting, let's say, 100 people a year, maybe 10 of them might be not so great, right? But the other 90 are gonna be great. And so it's almost like a numbers game. And the other thing is, like, I really personally, and I'm gonna answer these questions on a personal level, not so much this setting rule type thing. I really don't care if how other people are when they're like fake or anything like that. Like, I really don't pay too much attention to that. So like, if I meet you, for example, and you're fake, or you're really hard to be around and all that, like, it doesn't matter. I just move on, and I just continue meeting people. Like, it shouldn't really affect, it shouldn't really be the determining factor whether I continue to meet people or not, right? And so there's always going to be people like this, and so the only thing that you can do is just continue meet new new people. There's more people that are good than people that are bad, quote unquote, right? And so just keep doing it. Um, there's really no a secret recipe for that. But again, if you just stay online, it's gonna be harder. You decrease your chances, right? So you have to be mindful of that. Is content TID via our station or via their email? I'm guessing. Okay, way to ask for potential jobs. For example, I would like to work for MTG. Freelance illustrator artist, it's polite to hit art director this question, or it's not good practice. Maybe second question, also following this previous, how to get hired as an artist for MTG. Is there an application or artist? This could be any company, right? So, like I mentioned before, there is not really a one way to get the job, right? I can tell you a bunch of stories that are not very conventional on how people have gotten the jobs, and I will tell you this: out of my 12 plus years that I've worked with many, 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 many different clients, only one job, only one out of all of them, has been through the conventional way of me going to their website, applying, and then getting a return email from that application, and then getting that actual job. I did apply a lot of times through that conventional way, but only one of them I got through that. So that tells me that there isn't really one way to do this. Yes, you can reach out if I remember for the job that I have now at Wizards, I think I saw a post on Facebook saying, "Oh, rare opportunity. There's this one position for this, and that," and I saw it on Facebook, and I got through that. Um, I'll tell you another story. I have this friend, and I've known her for many years now, and I've seen her development as an artist, as she's an illustrator, and she always wanted to work for Magic. And funny thing, I think it was probably a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. I saw one of her latest illustrations that she posted. I think it was like a personal work, and I saw her work, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is like really good. Like, she's getting really good." And I saw this illustration. I really loved it. I think I saw it on Instagram, I think it was, and I was like, man, I could really see this on MTG, on Magic the Gathering. So I shared the post, and shared her portfolio with my a difference in the company, and 3 months later, she sent me a message saying, "Oh, thank you. Um, I started working with them, and she started doing some work. So she's already currently working for Magic, doing illustrations, and she had done a couple already. But you just never know, right? You just have to expose yourself as much as you can, right? But again, the work needs to be the skill level needs to be up there in order to be ready for when that opportunity comes. Is networking also creating YouTube channel a good idea? You can give some tips for community, also be seen as artists by artists and people in the industry, for example, recording process, portfolio creation, and so on. So I'm gonna be a little critical of this. just because of the time that we live in right now. Um, Short answer, yes, you can feel free to create a YouTube channel that will give you more exposure as an artist. The only problem that I see is that when getting views and attention and likes comes first than creating high quality work. And so I have seen this many times where artists get more concerned about having something to post on social media than actually taking the time to do high quality work. So they rather post something that is so level on quality, because they sort of rush it in order to keep posting stuff, than actually just maybe staying quiet or in silence for a couple more weeks or a couple more months in order to develop their skill more and then being able to post that, right? So I personally don't have a problem with you, you know, building your social media, YouTube, all that, as long as that, um, as long as your priority is still to be a better artist in terms of quality. Um, Now, you could definitely take the route of being, um, I hate using this word, but let's use it for a lack of a better word, an influencer in the art community, that has a bunch of, followers and stuff like that. But it's not the same when you have, let's say you have 500,000 followers on Instagram or something. That doesn't mean that you are um, a I don't want to say a great artist, but an artist that works sort of like in the industry, because maybe those 500,000 people, they just like your art. They're just regular people. They're not people that actually will hire you to make art for a production, right? So there's a difference there. That, yes, that will give you more exposure because you have a bunch of followers and all that, but it's not the same. Your audience is not the same. I know people that have no social media presence and they work for the best companies in the world, right? Because they do a great job, and they also know great people, but their skill level is up there, right? Um, that actually, and I'll tell you a real story. Um, about 7 years ago, I went to CTN in California. That's a convention, and I got a a sort of like a private tour at Blizzard. Blizzard was my top one company to work for many years, and a buddy of mine that works there gave me like a tour and all that. But we did it in at nighttime. It was like after the convention, so it was just me and him and whoever was working late night at the studio. And whenever we got to the cinematic department, the crazy thing was, like, I was looking at the people's desk names, and I was pretty aware of who was who in the community and the art community, but probably 98% of them I had no idea they existed. And these are people that work in the best cinematics for games in the world, and they had no social media. They had barely any presence, but they were working on this. Um, so it's not a must, but just have to be careful on what your priorities are. I see some shots or some questions on the chat. I will take care of those as soon as I'm done with these. So if you got questions, like, feel free to put them in. I'll go through them in a second. Who are the most valuable connections? Are directors, HR, CEOs? What's the difference between a connection and just an acquaintance? I have many acquaintances online, but few I could use to turn into jobs. So I'll be quick on this one. Um, uh, I at the beginning, you shouldn't be putting value to connections, right? So if you say that you're a lead artist, and then I have a senior artist or a junior artist, I'm not gonna be oh, you're a junior artist, like I don't need to meet you, type of thing. Like, I kind of get something out of you. Like, I wouldn't think of it that way, because one, you never know, and two, um that's just not good, I think. um Once you start getting really high in the ladder, like, let's say I'm a production designer or something like that, yes, there's more value for me to meet producers and art directors. Maybe not so much CEOs, because sometimes CEOs don't, they're running the company, they're not running the project itself, so they might not have a great idea, or they would not have a better idea over an art director that knows exactly what the project needs. And so, um, So it becomes a little bit more like a little bit more tricky later on. But at the beginning, you really don't want to put any value or any separation of value between who you meet. And when you say I have many acquaintances online, but few I could use to turn into jobs, um, and again, I'm sort of assuming some things here. You might be going into this with the wrong mindset. Like you don't meet people to turn them into jobs, right? I don't know if that's what you meant, but that's sort of like what I'm getting with that specific comment. And so, again, you don't turn your relationships into jobs, right? The jobs come because of your relationship with them, and so there's a huge distinction on that. And lastly, how can I do network only through internet and not in my country? I have no opportunity for events and no desire to connect with people in my country. Also, there is no possibility to go somewhere now or in the future. Is it realistic to do this efficiently online? Now, yes, it is realistic to do it online. However, you have to know there's just less chances of you, or there's less probability to do it more efficiently, right? And so all the things that we do, like networking, um, having great quality of work, doing target work, meeting certain people, these are all little pieces of a puzzle that just increases our chances for opportunity, right? It's not like, oh, if you do this, you will get this, right? It's just increasing your chances. You might do all the things right, and you might not get a job for a whole year or 2 years or something, right? So the timing might not be the right timing for you, etc. But we have to do all these things still just to increase our chances for opportunity. And so I don't know. Again, I don't have any context to this question because I don't know where you're from and your sort of circumstances that you say that you cannot go anywhere. But I do understand the the desire to not connect with the people like in your where you are, because that happened to me, right? So I'm from Puerto Rico, where the industry is really barren. There's really nothing there for video game or animation or anything like that. There's a few smaller companies, but there's really there's really nothing when you compare it to like United States or Europe and all that. And so my goal was always to leave the island and get closer to the places where opportunity um, was more available, right? And yes, you could work online, but it's not the same where, let's say, if you live in California, you can just drive 2 hours and you're at a convention every weekend or something like that. It's not the same. And so uh, a lot of this had to deal with the environment that you are surrounded with, right? There's a lot of change and mindset change that can come when you surround yourself and you have a different environment. That has been proven in many, many different studies. And so a lot of times what it takes is to really change your environment to really make that huge change. And so I'm a huge believer in that. And I actually saw that in my life personally. And so you just have to be okay with the price that you have to pay for that, right? Um, so so thank you guys for sticking with me throughout this small time. I'll take a look at the chat now and see if we have any other questions. I see two here. Let me go through this very quickly here. One of them is from Hal. Would you say that if you make a YouTube account, one should treat it as something like a second portfolio, but that's just has a community aspect? I wouldn't treat it as a second portfolio. My main thing is just I don't want you. Well, it's not that I don't want you. It's just that you have to be clear about what the purpose is for your YouTube channel, right? If you're creating a YouTube, right? So when I created my YouTube, originally was to have answers to questions that I always got as a teacher, as a professor, right? So I always got the same questions over and over. So I created a YouTube channel answering those questions. So whenever I get that question, I will say, oh, check out this video or check out this other video. But another reason was also to um, just provide content because I grew my concept art journey with YouTube because of a channel that I saw constantly all the time. And so that's sort of another way for me to give back to the community as well. But it's not really like my purpose is not to grow my YouTube channel. Yes, I want to grow my YouTube channel, but the purpose is to bring more traction to my artwork, or whatever the case may be, right? I don't want to become a YouTuber, for example, right? That's not my job. I'm still a concept artist, a visual development artist, right? And so I have to be extremely clear about what the purpose is for these social media accounts, YouTube rather. um so yeah. Charlie says, "Hey Jose, would you recommend moving to where the industry is for a higher chance to get a work as a freelancer?" Um, I, I mean, depending where you're at, right? But again, I'm a huge believer in changing your environment. It did happen to me, right? So I will always say yes to that question. It's just not everybody is willing to pay the price of that move. Not everybody is willing to leave their family behind, or friends, or make those changes, or learn a new language, or all this stuff, right? um, so you have to be prepared. It's not an easy thing to do, but if for sure that's where you want, that, like, yeah, like, go for it. I don't know if as a freelancer it makes a lot of sense, because nowadays everybody's working, not everybody, but most people are working remote. There's a lot of freelancing opportunities. um, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how the industry is in Africa, but um, yeah, the only thing that I would say, like, if you do it, like, make sure that you do it correctly, like, plan ahead, make sure that you actually have a plan. I know some people that move and then without a very concrete plan, and they end up coming back because it didn't work, and then they didn't have a, a good enough of a plan to do whatever it is that they wanted to do. So have a plan, make sure that you plan for it, and then you can just do that. Ombrana says, "How do you know if person don't want to speak with you and interested in connection online, and how to know if you too much for someone?" um, so if it's just online, the way that you know is because they don't answer you back. And even if they don't answer you back, I know a lot of people that they just don't even read sometimes the messages, or they forget. So I never take it personally, and so I sort of have a rule that one, I don't beg, right? And you shouldn't either, right? And so, like, when I try to connect with somebody, so for example, I'll give you guys a specific example. So I have like a little podcast where I reach out to artists and I try to talk to them and talk about stuff in the art industry and personal things and all that. And I reach out to a bunch of artists, right? I have like a huge list, and I again, this is sort of like a numbers game. I reach out to people, and some of them, or most of them, they don't even reply, right? And some of them just say straight no, because I don't want to be on a public platform like that, right? And so I never take any of those things personally. Um, and if I don't get any response, I always do one extra reach out a few weeks later, just so I can make sure that they either see my message, or they know that I'm sort of still interested. But after the second, I rarely do a third time. After the second time, I just move on. Like, I just move on and continue doing my thing. So I really try not to let that affect me. Um, and so yeah, that's my answer to that. What do you think it's okay to live and work as an artist in Europe if look where to move and make a first step? I don't know, if you're just starting out. Again, I wouldn't do the move part of it. Like, if it was me, like, if I'm starting out, I wouldn't do the move part if I didn't have enough of a skill. If I'm really just starting out and I'm like a baby in skill, like, I wouldn't even thinking about moving. I'm just thinking about really grinding my skill out as much as possible. And when I sort of know or see that I'm close to there, then I start doing and thinking about those things. I wouldn't start moving or anything, because then I'm putting the network and all that first, than getting better as an artist, right? And so um I want to make sure that my skill is somewhere there before I do any extra, uh because moving is it's gonna be a stressful thing, right? And you don't want to add to that if you're really trying to grind it out. And so I would I wouldn't go that route that way. So the way that I know how to know you have a skill to do that or you're not enough. So the way that I did it is by comparing myself to other artists, right? So if I wanted to work for Blizzard, for example, I would look at mid-level set of artists that work at Blizzard. I wouldn't look at the very elite or the very junior artists that work there. I would look at sort of like the mid-level, and I would literally put their art next to mine. And if and you could ask somebody that maybe doesn't know about art to look at them objectively and tell you. But if you can do it yourself, you can. But I would look at them next to each other and see if they hold up to each other. And if they do, that's when I know um, that I'm somewhere there, right? And if they don't, then I need to be really sincere to myself and be honest with myself. And I just gotta accept that I just need to get better, and then I figure out what I need to get better at, and then practice that, right? So if the lighting is bad, or the compositions and all that, I use the same artwork that I'm trying to reach, and I use it as a guide to say, okay, that they're doing the compositions this way, their lighting looks this way. I try to figure out their techniques and all that, and then I try to implement that in my work in order to reach that, right? So I don't need to reinvent the whole wheel. I gotta use what people that are already in that position did in order for me to do the same thing. I hope that makes sense. But that's sort of what I did. I always compare myself to other artists, and it's sort of like a skill, right? You have to do that healthy, right? Because it could be a very detrimenting thing to do to yourself. But you have to have the right mindset when you compare yourself. That this is for you to be better, and no matter how much it hurts to say that you're not good enough, a lot of times you have to accept that first and say, okay, I'm not good enough, but these are the things that I can fix, and these are the things that I can get better at, and work on those things, right? I'd rather deal with that pain than being delusional that I think that I'm good enough, and then never finding out that you know that I wasn't. Do you think American industry is recovering, worth moving into, or still quite bad with all the labels and better to wait for a while on console parties? Um, so the this is, I always see this like a cycle, right? This is like the real estate industry where it has a cycle, right? There's some years that is bad where we have layoffs because of X or Y, reason. I don't think this is just like a thing that is happening. It's just gonna continue to downfall till the end of time, and this, all these jobs are gonna disappear and all that. Um, the problem is that right now doing art is so accessible, or is becoming more and more accessible exponentially, more and more throughout the years, that there's way more artists now. And so a lot of times, we see these layoffs and we see what's happening in the industry, and um, it's not really a huge, it's not a bad as it seems, but it looks that way because there's so many of us now, that we're fighting to get these jobs. So I don't think it's like the end of an era of the industry, or AI is gonna take over and there's not gonna be any more jobs or anything like that. Like, I think it's just gonna recover the same way that it has before. It just looks worse now because of all these other components in the industry that were not there 10, 12, 15 years ago, right? Like AI and more artists being artists, and all this stuff. So um, if this is something that you still want to do, like I would still pursue it for sure. I would just have to be a little bit more like smarter about it. Let's see. Looking for the big ones will pay to relocate to where they're at if you'll be working. Yes, that is correct, Gabe. Yeah, as well. Yeah. Same thing happened to me. So I got relocated to Texas from Puerto Rico when I got the job, and I was gonna get relocated to Seattle for Wizards, but because of COVID and all this stuff during that time, I just stayed working remotely. But Um, yes, a lot of companies now are accepting or creating the jobs to be fully remote. But cool. I don't see any more questions on chat. Again, thank you guys for so much for coming. I really enjoy doing these talks because I think opens up the forum to talk about these things. Hopefully, we can do this more often in the future. Again, I would love for you guys to put on chat later on what sort of topics you guys would like to talk about in the future. And that way, that gives me some idea of what you guys want. And yeah, thank you guys so much for coming, and I'll see you guys around.